parents, the child goes to the teacher who will guide that child.
What do you mean by external moral authority? You use that expression a lot.
Materialism has to do with when you are
Hello, it's great to have all of you back with us in the studio. I am with Sister Denise, who is taking us through what values mean in this course entitled The Course in Values and Spirituality. This is the Interdependence of Values, which is contained on pages 45 and 46 of book number 1. If you haven't joined us before, I would highly recommend that you watch all the previous episodes as we are going through the books in a chronological order. Sister Denise, wonderful having you back.
Thank you, thank you.
The interdependence of values. I would now like to take you through challenges in practicing values. Okay, I think our viewers will be extremely interested in this subject because you have quite clearly enunciated that there's a difference between what we believe and the way we behave and the way we speak. And part of the reason for this course is we want to bridge that gap. So when you said there are both internal and external challenges to overcome if we want to practice values, what did you mean?
What I want to convey is that everyone is operating from a position of being spiritually depleted and weak.
Is that what you meant when you said internal challenges are generated by character defects?
Well, I don't think they're generated by character defects, they're reflected in character defects.
Okay, go on.
People do not realize that they get born weak and they carry on weak. Again, bringing in this idea of reincarnation, we've all lived many lives, some more than others of course, but the present time is a time when people are running on empty, on the whole, fairly general. Individuals have a hard time following the voice of conscience. People are weak in terms of they don't have very much love. They want someone to love them, but they can't love someone. And so maintaining an equilibrium in give and take of karma is very difficult because people are on the take. And that's because of being internally depleted. Now, whenever the light of your spiritual qualities is dim, you're operating in what spirituality calls darkness and also ignorance. And it means that that lack of light is filled with negativity, strong negative emotions, a lot of ego, and many things. And these character defects are going to just make it impossible for you to live according to higher values.
You mentioned in the next line something that all the viewers will resonate with. Powerful feelings such as desire, anger, greed, attachment, false pride, jealousy and fear displace our finer feelings and prove that we are not morally strong enough to resist them. That sounds oh so familiar.
But I think it's not quite true. It's not a matter of moral strength. It's a matter of personal strength.
What's the difference?
Moral strength is the power to apply a rule. And so people try and get more like physical force about. That's why morality is enforced using violence. But these finer feelings are not because we're not morally strong, it's because we are spiritually absolutely depleted. Now, people who use the term, and I also used the term, moral strength, moral muscle, assumes that people are strong and they're just not using their strength. But what I would say now is they're not using any strength because they don't have any strength. And punishing them for being weak doesn't do any good, which is why I'm against the assumption that morality can only be enforced through the use of violence. I mean, that's how it's done, but it doesn't actually improve the situation, because the problem is not that they're bad, the problem is they're weak.
Could you tell us what you mean by external challenges are generated from people or situations in our social or professional environments?
You're weak. You don't have much in the way of spiritual qualities because you're depleted. And so you're operating from strong negative emotions. Now the other people are also. And so your environment is filled with weak people who are behaving under a motivation of strong negative emotions, which constitutes an external challenge for you. So the external challenges arise from spiritual weakness, and the internal challenges arise from your inability to respond to those, because you are also weak, you see. So my resolution of this problem is someone somewhere has to get strong. So you might as well start with yourself, because even if there are negative things around you, if you're spiritually strong and you function according to higher principles, you will change the situation.
I once heard it said that even if it seems as if all is lost, virtue has its own reward. I really love that expression. It came to mind as I heard your last answer. I would now like to take you and the viewer to page 45, which reads, after you cited an example, it requires strength of character to carry out ethically pure actions in the face of opposition in order to uphold a principle. I take my hat off to any and every individual who can pull this off.
You see, the problem for many people is intimidation. You may be very good, quote unquote, but you also may be naive.
Oh yes, and naivety is not a virtue.
But a lot of people don't get it. And when morality is being taught, especially to girls, you know, they are encouraged to be naive, because then it's easier to manipulate them. But if you want to uphold a principle and you think, yeah, I must uphold this, but you don't understand what you're up against, as soon as the amount of intimidation is increased, you're finished. You see, so you need to know, and you need to be very capable and internally strong to face down intimidation.
You go on to say something that I found to be very beautiful. Truth is lived by morally strong people. That is exquisite.
It is. And there are not very many people who have that strength, that whatever their values are, they will stand up for them. And they may have to pay a very heavy price. I mean, intimidation is one of them. There are many other prices that a person has to pay. They can be marginalized, isolated. Many things can happen to you, character assassination and so on. And there is some spiritual laws which you need to know about in order to get through that sort of opposition. And one of them is that truth can never be hidden. It may take time to get revealed, but it will get revealed. And so you have to have a lot of patience when a lot of falsehood is thrown on you, to just know that the truth reveals itself. So here you're talking not only a person has to be morally strong, they have to have a certain resilience that and endurance to be able to withstand a lot of opposition over a long period of time, and then ultimately they get vindicated. And in some cases, this will happen after their death. You know, there's a story about a man who was very badly condemned, but actually he was a war hero. And then maybe 50 years after his death, his reputation was re-established, but he's already gone. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a bit sad.
It's a bit sad.
Within this chapter of discussing challenges in practicing values, I would like to know, why is it that one's weaknesses and character defects and negative traits have a greater gravity in one's life as opposed to your values? Why is it easier to fall than to rise?
Gravity?
Yeah, but why is it like that?
Well, there's another aphorism that is mentioned in this area, and that is that the force of negativity will come to face you either as temptation, the attraction, or terror.
Sorry, say that again, please.
The force of negativity is the real thing.
Yes.
It will attack you either by temptation, by attraction, and if that doesn't work, terror.
Okay.
Here you are, a weak human soul, trying to live a good life in the face of the force of negativity, which is very, very difficult because you're weak. I mean, if you're strong, then the force of negativity doesn't have much chance against you, but the problem is you're weak. And so what spirituality says is that, okay, let that be the case. You're weak, and the force of negativity is really powerful. But God plus one is more powerful than the force of evil minus one. Then the force of evil and the force of God are equally powerful. Then the difference lies in which side you put yourself on. And it requires courage, you see, because if you say, okay, I can comprehend that the force of God and the force of evil are equally powerful, that means where I go changes the balance. And if you decide, okay, I'm going to side with God, that means you have to have faith, you have to have trust, and you have to have a lot of courage, because God is not going to threaten you or tempt you. God is just going to be a quiet, silent, positive resonance, which is very, very subtle, and which you have to be very subtle to feel. And the force of negativity is strong, it is scary, it is very tangible, you see. So you have to have a lot of courage to turn your back on that.
You ask the question, which is what I call an iconic Denise Lawrence question. So what can we do to strengthen our moral standpoint? And then you go on to discuss meditation techniques, giving us inner power, moral strength, and mental clarity. There must also be the inner capacity to empower others to overcome their shortcomings. So what you're saying is, in order to overcome one's weaknesses, understanding is not enough. You need understanding and power.
Yeah. Again, I would refer to the idea of virtue. You know, a lot of moral philosophy says all you need is to be virtuous. No. Virtues are like flowers, and flowers can be stomped on. You must have power to support your virtue, and that means spiritual power. And if you want to be powerful, then you have to be linked to the source of power, the Almighty, you see. And for that, meditation is the word that refers to that link between yourself and the Almighty, so that you draw the power of God into yourself.
I need to ask you at this juncture, how does one, with a mind that is filled with anything except silence, fill oneself up when there's so much of turmoil going on inside? The turmoil is part of the reason the individual finds it difficult to practice the values that they hold dear. There's quite a lot of resistance from the outside as far as putting your values into practice is concerned, but there is a tidal wave of resistance from the inside as far as implementing what you believe is concerned. So you're getting pulled both ways, and all you want to do is head north.
You have to start at some time, and you have to start somewhere. So if you say, okay, the time is now, the place is now. Your environment is full of all kinds of turmoil. Your history is full of all kinds of weaknesses. You have to set that aside and say, okay, I'm starting now. And I'm starting with baby steps. And my baby steps begin with saying, I am not a body, I am not neither male nor female, because the first thing you have to do is come out of the gender bias idea that everyone is bought into. Is the first thing. Then the second thing is to say, okay, I'm not my gender, I'm not my race, what am I? I'm a soul, I'm a child of God. That means you start to build the relationship with God, and you give it a much higher value than all of the difficulties that are threatening you from all sides, you see. And as you begin to build your relationship with yourself based in truth and your relationship with God, then your ability to handle these oppositions is going to be increasing. But you have to overcome also your fear, because your situation is intimidating. And so take courage, and keep a dialogue going between yourself and the Supreme, because you need to build your faith in yourself, your faith in God, and your willingness to accept that just because something seems scary, it doesn't mean that it's going to take you over. You have to consider it as an illusion, and that will reduce your fear of it. It's a very real thing, but if you consider it as an illusion, you see, God is extraordinarily subtle, but real. The challenges we face are absolutely tangible, but God's teaching says consider them to be illusory. They're just sense impressions. And then you have to go with that, and it changes your position. And that is an attitude, it's a matter of attitude. And I think this is the best place to start. One thing that I think is very important to realize is that the conventional morality encourages virtue, but it strongly discourages self-empowerment. Because if you become powerful, you don't need the external moral authorities, and they become redundant, and they don't want that. But actually, if you do accumulate personal power, then you actually become a role model, which means that you then, the external moral authority, but when you have this combination of spiritual power, spiritual virtue, connection with God, you're a lot more, I suppose, authentic and pure than what the conventions have left us with. And I think that the fact that they have failed us means that we need to do something to put something in that place. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. What you just shared is not understood at all.
No.
Could you please tell us what God's role is in your own power is concerned? How does one's relationship with Him impact on one's life in such a way that you do get to practice your values?
Well, if you say, God is with me, or you say to yourself, God told me I am with you, that makes God with me, you know. It means you are adding to yourself something that is greater than all of your problems put together. You see, this is how you do it.
You establish a relationship with Him?
It's an affirmation. Mm-hmm. You affirm, you know, I choose to decide and affirm that I am with God, and all of my problems are, from a mathematical point of view, less than God plus 1. Even if they're equal to God, but I'm on the side of God, so they are less than me plus God. That means they're outnumbered. That means I win.
Wow, that's quite something. Is there anything that you would like to let our viewers know before we say goodbye?
I would really like a person to consider assigning higher value to your relationship with God than your relationship with the world. That's something to consider. That's higher than your relationship with the world. Because otherwise what happens is your relationship with the world diminishes the potential influence of God on the situation. When you put your relationship with God higher than your relationship with the world, it diminishes the impact of the world on your situation.
The question that I leave you with is, are you worth it? And do you feel that you love yourself enough to invest this amount of energy in you? So understanding the fact that you're a soul and developing one's relationship with God. Very profound message by Sister Denise. Thank you.
Thank you.
And it was wonderful spending this half an hour in the studio with Sister Denise. I hope to see all of you back again very soon for our next episode. Do take care and goodbye.